Everyone knows the English love their gin, and we've all heard the story of how the gin and tonic was pretty much invented to get colonial Brits to drink the malaria-curing quinine and tonic. But what people don't know is that the spirit's popularity actually has a much more sinister origin. You see, in the early 18th century, the entirety of London effectively went on a 5-decade-long gin bender. It all started in 1688. King James II was getting chummy with Catholics, much to the displeasure of the largely Protestant Parliament. After the birth of James's son signaled a possible Catholic dynasty, parliamentarians called up James's nephew, William of Orange, who rolls up on English beaches with a formidable Dutch armada and assumes control of England in the Glorious Revolution. William brings two things with him: a war with Catholic France and the lowlands' favorite juniper-tinged spirit, gin. With war came a massive tariff on French brandy. This, coupled with new duties on beer levied in 1690, opened the door for a new drink of choice. William actively encouraged the flow of gin in his new court, and as with all fads, it soon trickled down to the people. As Britain started moving slowly towards industrialization, London began urbanizing, and fast. Untold new masses of poor and working-class people began flooding into the city. At the same time, wages were rising and food costs were falling, and these urban poor found themselves with a bit of disposable income. And with this, an industry found a market. A few years of bumper crops led wealthy landowners to seek out new uses for their extra grains, and gin production, being new to the market, was essentially unregulated. And so, by 1724, 5 million gallons of gin were being distilled in London every year. That was enough for every man, woman, and child to down a pint of gin every week. And they totally did. When gin first hit the streets, people weren't really sure what to do with it. There were no rules or rituals from years past to govern its consumption. So basically, people ended up drinking pints of gin like they'd drink pints of ale. And since it traditionally had been associated with medicine, it lacked the gender and class stigma of other alcohols, and suddenly gin consumption became an essential social experience. For the first time, men and women drank freely together in gin parlors. And like, a lot of gin. Because life for the working poor in early 18th century London pretty much sucked. Cramped quarters, unfamiliar work routines, poor diets, and lack of recreational outlets all led to reliance on gin as an escape from the urban hellscape. So gin, and the pervasive drunkenness associated with it, quickly became seen as a widespread cause of crime and social instability. The Middlesex magistrates called it the principal cause of vice and debauchery committed among the inferior sort. Naturally, rather than seeing that their poor conditions encouraged drunkenness, genteel officials blamed the poor conditions of the poor on their drunkenness. Because some things never change. Moral hand-wringing especially decried the drink as a debaser of womanly virtues, and drinking women were seen as promiscuous, adulterous, rebellious spreaders of disease. The backlash eventually led to the passage of several gin acts, raising taxes on the drink and requiring licenses to sell it. This unsurprisingly resulted in a massive black market, widespread popular discontent, and no slowing of gin consumption, which increased to as high as 10 liters per person per year in 1743. So hooray for prohibition? Finally, by 1751, a series of disastrous harvests significantly reduced the distillation of spirits from grains, and falling wages had decreased the disposable income of the poor. As the generation who had been raised on the novelty of the drink began to die out, the gin craze subsided, leaving only a powerful legacy of stigmatized substance abuse in its wake. So the next time you pour a martini, Winston Churchill's perfect dry martini recipe, drink a cold glass of gin while looking at a bottle of vermouth. Remember to toast the half-century of drunk Londoners who made the drink famous.